Hey guys, wanted to do a quick tutorial on how to do valve seals. I know it seems pretty intimidating if you've never torn anything apart before, and I was actually a little, intimidated when I realized that's what I was going to have to do. Some symptoms of knowing that you have bad valve seals are oil in the exhaust runners above the turbo. Generally, from what I've been told, oil can't go up from the turbo, so if the turbo is pushing some oil, it shouldn't go up. The volume of exhaust should keep the oil down in your O2 and downpipe. So if you see oil in the actual ports when you take the manifold off, or coming out of the manifold itself, then you might have some bad valve seals, or otherwise oil getting into the combustion chamber. Another symptom here is, as you can see, I had some oil coming out of the gaskets. They weren't leaking, it was seeping once it was hot. So another thing to check out for. The only tools you really need to do this are just basic hand tools. Like I got a rubber mallet, some pliers, a magnet is very helpful, and a ratchet, and I got a socket that I put some tape over. This is to drive the seals down onto the seats. It's not hard to do. You just tap them with the mallet to get them to go down. And I actually found when I was testing, trying out to do this, it's easiest to pull the seals off with vice grips because you can lock them down, and then you don't have to try to hold and squeeze them and pull at the same time. So to get started, this already requires a little bit of knowledge. You'll need to know how to detension the timing belt and take it off. I'll put a video up at some point about how to do that, because it's not hard. I'll have to retime all this anyway so I can show you how to do it. So you get the timing belt loose, you slip it off the cam gears, and you unbolt both cams. So I got both cams down there. And try to keep your stuff organized. As you can see, I got a little tray over there that I kept all the bolts and caps organized. The caps are numbered and lettered. One has E, one has I for exhaust and intake, and they're numbered, starting from cylinder 1 going over, so you don't have to worry too much about mixing them up. And the same with the lifters and the rockers, like they're all the same, unless you got some kind of crazy solid lifter or something, in which case you wouldn't watch this video probably. So once you get the cams out, you got to get also the other obvious thing that I left out is this little black block of metal here. That's the spring compressor tool. This is one of they have a lot of these on like Amazon and eBay and stuff, so just go ahead and pick one up. It was like 30 bucks. That's what you use to drive them down. It comes with a couple different attachments, and I don't know what the other one's for, but I know the little bucket that I used, got on there is to depress the spring. So I'll go ahead and get that set up and show you how it works. Alright guys, so I have the tool set up. So basically you just line up the screw directly above the valve, down the center of it, and you get the little bucket in there, and you screw it down until it's touching like this. So then once you get that going, then you go ahead and start running it down. So you just get it going. Mine's a little off here actually. You can see it's a little bit off kilter. So what you want to do is back it off until it's loose and just bump this over. These don't have to be super tight. So don't think you have to run these two bolts down. You do not. Like they can be just finger tight. And oh, sorry, it's my wheelchair being broken. Yeah, these can be finger tight, and it's just fine. So don't worry too much about that. As long as they're on, and the thing isn't loose, then you're okay. So yeah, once you get that ready, just go ahead and run this down. Let's get clip back and tighten here. And you'll see as we get home, we'll get a little closer there. You'll see that it starts pressing down, and don't be fuck. Okay, I almost left one important part out of this video. Once you get the tool set up, or you could do it before as well, you need to get yourself some rope. So this is a 3/8 inch rope that I got from.
Wanted to add a quick note here. There are a couple parts of the video that have corrupt footage. So in this part I was just explaining, this is rope from Harbor Freight, and you're stuffing it down in the cylinder. So when it jumps back, you'll see that it's already stuffed into the cylinder, and I'm explaining how you rotate the engine over.
Engine over, and as you're rotating it by the crank, you'll see your dowel will go up and down. What you're looking for is you're looking to rotate the cylinder you want to do until your dowel or screwdriver is all the way as low as it can go. It travels down, down, and then when it stops traveling down farther, and then you rotate it a little bit more, and it starts slowly going back up. At that point, you want to just set it back to the lowest that it possibly can be, and then you want to start getting your rope. Now, I would recommend rope, and then as I actually got I knew how much rope would go in. I did 2 cylinders. I knew hey, this is how much rope you can fit in the cylinder. Then at that point, I actually cut it just so I wouldn't have a bunch of excess. So all you got to do is you kind of get your finger down there to get it going down the thread hole, and you just start stuffing it. Now this one isn't lined up, so it's not going to go like fully, but you just you'll feel with your finger when it's going. Just kind of keep it going straight, and you just keep shoving it in here, and you just go until it stops. You can't get any more in there, and no matter how you try to straighten it, it just wants to bunch up on you. Don't worry too much about getting it too full. Like, it doesn't have to be completely super packed tight full. Like, do not take a screwdriver or something or try to jam more in there. You can use it to feed it in if it helps you, but don't push too hard, because what you don't want to do is cut or break off little pieces of rope in there, or get it so tight that you can't get it back out for some reason. So it just needs to be relatively full, because then once you get it relatively full, turn your ratchet to go back counterclockwise, and rotate the engine carefully by hand until you feel it stop. Like, it'll hard stop. So what that does is it compresses all that rope up into the top of the cylinder. You'll feel it, and you'll know that's what it is. So once you hit that point, don't go farther. Then at that point, you can take all the spring pressure off of these valves, and they won't fall down in the cylinders. Don't freak out if they go down a little bit, because you have quite a bit of leeway in compressing that spring. And also, since you're putting fresh valve seals in, they'll tend to hold their valves up a little bit for you as well. So, yep, once you get your rope all set up, and like I said, I trimmed mine.
As I was trying to say here with this another part of bad footage, I trimmed the rope so that it pretty much stops right there at that point, so I know when I have all of the rope in, it's exactly to the top of the spark plug tube. So if I don't have enough, then it'll be obvious, because I'll have too much rope hanging out. It took me like 2 tries to get that correct, but once I did, it wasn't too bad. And basically when the clip will go back, it'll be back at the point where I'm starting to run down the compressor tool.
Jet on mine, it's pushing the whole valve, see? But what it'll do is it'll eventually hit a point that it'll pop. You'll see the middle pop out of this, and the keepers, you'll see them pop up out of the retainer there. So keep going, keep going. Yep, and there it's starting to go. So this valve should pop up here any second now. Or maybe it might not, because we're a little bit at an angle, but we'll see. How much spring do we got? Oh, we got a little bit of spring. Let's see. Must not have got the rope very full, or it's not very tight. I'll see if I can reset and fix this. Okay, so I checked again, and I actually didn't have it rotated all the way up. I'll go ahead and leave that mistake in, because I'm just trying to, show. You might see people do videos and, everything goes perfect for them, but not everything goes perfect when you're actually doing it yourself. So don't get discouraged, when stuff like that happens. As you can see here, I have already done all but these last 2 valves here, and I did not do that at any point on any other one. But I did have a couple other, various problems. Like, I did lose a keeper on one of them. I dropped it down on the floor, and it's either stuck in the engine bay or it's gone, because I couldn't find it anywhere. I had to go to a friend's house and pick up a couple spares. That wasn't too big of a deal, and you can always order them as well. but I just wanted to, you know, have some, and I knew that he had a few spare heads, so just went down and picked some up, no big deal. Definitely one thing to be super careful of, and if you're really paranoid about it, I'd recommend getting a bunch of extra rags, but do not drop anything in any of the holes or down in the head. Like, avoid, like I said, if you want to cover stuff up with cardboard, whatever you want to do, absolutely avoid dropping stuff, you know, into the head, because you may not be able to get it back out. You know, maybe you have to pull the oil pan kind of thing if you happen to drop it. Sit down into this passage right here in the middle. And see that goes right down. So you don't want to do stuff like that. Just be really careful. I don't think it would cause any catastrophic damage, but it always could. You never know when something's in the bottom end of your engine. So now that we got this ready, we can go ahead and start tightening this up, and we should see it start to pop right out. Yep, now see the keepers are starting to stick out. That's exactly what you're looking for. Don't be alarmed, like I said earlier, if it sticks a little bit and then pops suddenly. That's normal. It's just, you know, oil gunk and stuff can get in there. And also, if you got an old car, you know, that you bought, you know, from somebody recently, and you're trying to do this because it had a, you know, it's worn out and has a problem, don't feel bad if it's not as clean as like mine is. I've basically owned this car since this end, like I rebuilt this engine after I bought it, so I've changed the oil, you know, quite frequently, and it usually gets less than 10,000 miles, you know, per oil change. Now some people are saying, oh, that's, you know, 2,000 miles in oil change. Like, it's synthetic, and if it gets mileage on it, it's one long trip, so it gets up to temperature. Like, all the trips that this car makes are, you know, driving 2 hours to a racetrack, doing passes, driving 2 hours back. So it's not like daily driven, you know, 10,000. So once you get that up here and you see the bottom of the keeper, take your magnet. You could use pliers, but I would recommend a magnet. It's much easier. And just very carefully get these off here. And here's what the keepers look like. They got a little ring and they're wedge shaped. So the wedge lines up with that groove in the valve right there. And you put the wedge part facing down. And that's what holds the valve in. So just set those aside and be doubly sure not to lose those, because that's obviously very important. And then you just want to reverse your ratchet and run this guy right back up. So you want to run this up until it's fully loose, because you have to take this bucket off, because, you know, you're taking the whole valve off at this point. So very soon you should feel your tension start going away, and then you can just start using your fingers. Like, you'll know when the ratchet quits working. So almost there. Yep, it's getting finger loose right now. So we just take, oh, actually not quite. Well, maybe a turn or a couple turns too. Go back up again. There we go. Yep. Now just loosen it the rest of the way. Then you want to take your little tool out, and you can set this right here because it's too big to fall through, so don't worry. And then you can just pick your valve and retainer right up out of here, then set it down. I usually just set them down right here because they're not going to go anywhere, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Yeah, and now you're ready to pull the valve seal. So let me set up and I'll kind of show you how to do it. I don't know if I will be able to do it with one hand, but I'll certainly try. Alright guys, so I wanted to get a shot of the what you're actually replacing here. So if you look down there, that brown seal with the spring on the top of it, that's your valve seal. Now these can go bad in a few ways, and I'll give an example of a bad one here after I get it off, and we'll compare it to a new one. But basically the goal here is to grasp that valve seal very carefully with a pair of needle nose vice grips and pull it straight off. So I can't set it up with two hands, so I'll get it set up and show you. Alright, so I'm set up, and this is how you're basically going to pull it off. So you want to get it, don't get this too tight, because what you can do is crush the entire thing, and then you're basically trying to pull off against your own force of it being crushed on. So you want to get it snug, but not too tight. Like as you can see here, yeah, that wasn't quite tight enough. You want to get it right on here, as straight as. Alright guys, so I got this apart. Now, I don't know if you can see, but I did have this a little bit too tight here. So as you can see, it's a little bit ovaled. So try to avoid that. That little nicked portion in there isn't terrible. But let's, I'll take it out of here and we'll take a look at the top of it. Because that's what you're really looking at here. So, this one doesn't look too bad. It's getting a little bit of a lip on one side. So that it was definitely time to replace it. And I'll show you what an actual bad one looks like here. The one that was for sure pulling oil. I don't knock every one of them over. That's alright. It doesn't matter. Let's see. Here we go. So if you look at this one, there we go. You can see that a little part of the lip is broke off. So when that happens, the spring isn't pulling, properly all the way around this. It's not pulling, tension all the way around. And these were the cylinders that were the most oily. So in my case, it was number 3 and number 4, and it was both of these seals on the exhaust side of 3 were bad, and one of them on 4 was bad. So, yep, if you see anything like that, it's really, really hard to see when the springs are still on, so it's not something you can really inspect, before you do it. But if you see anything like that, then, you're just going to want to go ahead and order up a new set of seals. They're very cheap on Amazon, so I wouldn't worry, too much, about cost on that. I think I paid, less than $20 for a set. And in my case, I went with Viton seals. Here's what they look like. They look the same, except they're a different material. These are just rubber right there. I went with a Viton because they're supposed to be a little bit more durable. But one thing to keep in mind is if you daily your car in very cold weather, supposedly they're not as pliable in the cold. So that might be something to consider. I don't drive my car in the winter. It sits in the garage here, as soon as there's any kind of salt or brine down. So I'm not concerned, but just wanted to let you know. Next I'll set up and I'll show you how you drive them back on. Okay, so the installation is pretty simple. You just take your seal right here, and you want to very carefully start it by hand. Just get it all the way down and push until you feel it's pretty even on there. And then you want to get your socket and extension. Get that. Here we are. This is a 11 millimeter, I believe, but just whatever seals you got. They might not be exactly the same, so just get whatever fits best for you. When you stick it down over there, and I'll try to do this with one hand very carefully, but I'm not going to seat it all the way down because I don't want to drive it at an angle. But basically, you just very carefully tap it, and I'm sure you could use a screwdriver or something. But yeah, you just tap it down, and you want to listen to the sound that it's making. So see, it's kind of a like dull thud right now. Like I said, I'm not going to do it right now because it's not going to drive down quite straight one-handed. But when you drive it down and that dull thud changes into kind of a pinging noise, that's how you know it's all the way down. That means that the top metal of the seal is touching the top of the seat where it's going to sit, and then you can stop. Don't go crazy on it. Like I said, I tap very carefully with a wooden mallet. So if you're using something else, like maybe a heavy screwdriver handle or something, just be careful. I would not recommend using a metal hammer because you don't want to damage the rubber on top of that. Just be careful with it. You just need to get it to seat. It doesn't take a whole lot of force. So I'll get that seated, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so I got the valve tool back on, and I got the spring compressed again. So the next thing I would do to say that it'll tremendously help is you want some kind of grease. Wheel bearing grease. I would probably say not lithium, but the stickiest you can get. I have some trans-assembly lube that would probably work pretty good for this. But what you want to do is take a little dab of grease and just get it right here and kind of get you around the stem of the valve there. I guess it would be I don't know what it would be, the stem, the top. I'm not a mechanic, so I don't pretend to know every term. but you want to get some grease there to kind of glue the keepers back in, because the problem that you'll run into is the keepers will not want to stay where you put them. They will tend to fall right off or not stay in place, or any number of things that are annoying. So you just want to use a little bit of grease there to kind of keep them in place. I also can't do this with one hand, so I'll go ahead and get those in place and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I got the keepers back on, and here's what it looks like when they're ready. So I'll try to zoom in a little bit if I can. See if we can get that. Okay, so as you can see there, I got the grease that was helping to hold them on. And you can see the groove is lined up in the top there, and the bottom has to be smaller than the top. Now the part of the trick to this, makes it a little bit difficult when you're trying to do it, is you gotta watch and make sure that they don't get caught when you're backing this back up, because sometimes it'll get caught and kind of flip it out of the groove. So just watch carefully and you'll be able to see when it's doing it if that's gonna go. It looks like that might be. You can touch them with your finger and see. It feels like those are still in the groove. So we'll keep going and just see if it keeps going up or if it gets stuck. Nope, now you can see there it got stuck on one side. So it's kind of a little bit off to one side, so we want to run that back down and readjust. So just get it back down until you get the tension off of it. And then you want to just push that down and kind of wiggle it and make sure they're in. Now keep in mind these are much smaller than the actual diameter of the top of the valve, so if you can see there's a good sized gap between the two wedges, so they don't, both sides won't line up perfectly. So if you look at it and it looks crooked, don't worry. That's normal. Go ahead and start running it back out again. It looks like it's catching on this side again. So yeah, we're gonna need to adjust it a little bit more. And you can also rotate them. Just be kind of careful, because you don't want to have them come off on you. So we'll turn that a little bit that way, turn that down, push on it, push on it. You can also adjust your angle. It looks like I might get a little bit of angle, so just take the mallet here. There we go, now it's pushing a little more straight. So push it down a little. Lift this back up again. Oh, it's coming crooked again. So this one isn't happy. Let's go ahead and get it worked back in. Sorry for the camera work, it's pretty hard to do with one hand, so. Okay, there we go. Now you can see it's actually starting to slip in there. Okay, see, it keeps going. It keeps going. That looks good. Yep, and we are in. So you just keep going on this, and now you're loose. So you can, at that point, take your hands, thread that out by hand, and just kind of inspect the top of it. And that looks good. You don't have to worry about the grease. The oil will melt that. You're not, unless you're running some kind of weird grease, that's, not just like a regular, wheel bearing grease, but the little dab of grease isn't going to do anything. You get more contamination from your fuel than that would ever give you. So that's how you do a valve seal. Now you just got to do 15 more of those. It's not too big of a deal. Just take your time and try not to drop any keepers. I did at the pause a little bit ago because I dropped one and then went under one of these little lifter bosses here, so I had to fish it out with a pair of pliers. Just like I said, be really careful not to drop them if you at all can. It can happen. There's luckily not too many places they can go. Just look very carefully. That's all for this one. I'll also get you another video, which I will link in the description, of how to do the timing belt, because I've seen a few videos about it, but I just wanted a short and sweet one about how to get it on, let marks, get it off, with also some specifics to the 2.4 liter, because there's not a lot of posts about that. Thanks. Thanks for watching. Bye.